Hello and welcome to Politics. Today I am Farrukh Pitafi. Once again we are going to talk about Pakistan's domestic politics where blame game never ends. There is one fault line that is quite visible within PDM where, PMLN and People's Party keep on blaming each other. And then there is a fault line within PMLN itself. That is going on because it seems that Shehbaz Sharif is now trying to woo People's Party, and then strange things keep on happening. Chaudhry Nisar has taken oath after 3 years of hiatus, and that is something very surprising, at least to people like me, working class people who understand that if they don't show up for job for 3 months, they will never keep their job. But somehow, if you are an elected MPA, if you are a senator like Ishaq Dar or elected senator, you can keep the job without actually fulfilling minimum requirements. But then there is a grapevine about the conspiracy theories. There is this grapevine that perhaps there is a formula that is on cards, especially linked to what People's Party is thinking, while Shehbaz Sharif actually woos them. And then at that time, the same formula actually applies on Punjab, where Chaudhry Nisar will be given some kind of responsibility replacing CM Buzdar. So these speculations are going on, but on the other side, we see that while Shehbaz Sharif does this, the other side of the party that is commanded by Maryam Nawaz, who is the daughter of founder of the party, Mian Nawaz Sharif, they are exceptionally critical of People's Party. So on one side, this is going on. On the other side, we also see that there is an exchange of harsh words between opposition as a whole, especially People's Party, PMLN, and the government of Pakistan that is ruled by or controlled by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. These matters are quite important, and then of course is the matter of Jahangir Group, and repeatedly because there were certain claims that were made by the Jahangir Group's members that Barrister Ali Zafar's report actually exonerates Jahangir. Then we saw Shehzad Akbar's tweets, and then we saw also Barrister Ali Zafar's tweets telling us that there hasn't been any progress in the report, and the report or investigation has nothing to do with the legal inquiry into the allegations, and that this was internal report, and that report has not been finalized yet. So we are going to talk about all these matters. I know purview is big, but we are going to try doing justice to all of them. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined in the studio by Javed Jadoon Saab, who is a political analyst, a senior journalist and whatnot, a regular on this channel, on this show. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ahmad Jawad Saab, Central Secretary Information of ruling party Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, also joins us in the program. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Then Dr. Niaz Murza, a senior analyst and also a political economist, joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for being part of the program as well. I have to start with the studio. Ahmad Jawad Saab, with your permission, let me start with Javed Jadoon Saab. Javed Jadoon Saab, opposition seems to be divided. Government or ruling party seems to be divided. What exactly is going on?
Thank you very much, Farrukh. I think starting with the opposition first.
Yeah.
Opposition's political alliance known as PDM, I think it was a non-starter right from the beginning, and we have been talking about the problems being faced by the PDM right in the beginning as well. Why? Because ideologically very diversified political groupings got together and just one agenda, and the agenda was to destabilize the sitting government in Islamabad. that was a very, very kind of a narrow spectrum of the agenda, because people's interests were not being represented, the political parties, some of them like Pakistan Muslim League, and it was kind of a general perception that they wanted to get some kind of a relief from their cases being heard in the courts and in the NAB as well. So that perception, I think, did find traction in a quite significant section of the society in Pakistan, including the followers of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and the independent observers as well. Secondly, I believe the problem was that kind of a disparate grouping together, like Maulana Fazl Rahman's party, Pakistan People's Party, and PMLN. In the past, they have been adversaries, and getting together on one point agenda to destabilize the government was not the kind of agenda which could have been the real cause for the movement.
So this is the analysis of why PDM didn't work. The question is, does PMLN work? Because there are two opponent parties within the party. And does at any level People's Party's central appeal work?
I think that's a very important question, Farrukh. If you look at Pakistan People's Party, we know that it has been confined to only one province in Pakistan, and even for that matter only confined to the rural parts of Sindh, and they do not have the kind of support the biggest city in Pakistan, the metropolis of Karachi.
They won a seat?
They won a seat, but mostly the seats were won by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and MQM Pakistan. Secondly, you said that there's a division, or kind of a division, or a perceived division within PMLN as well. After the release of Shahbaz Sharif, I think we saw the kind of departure which everybody expected with Shahbaz Sharif, who has been the kind of a person not following or not pursuing the policy of confrontation with the government or with the establishment. I think that was a significant departure, but given the significance of Mariam Nawaz in the party and the supreme leader, so-called Mr. Nawaz Sharif, sitting in London, there was bound to be some kind of friction and fissures between the two groups. And now we see that even in the very recent past, we have seen the statements, very divergent statements coming from Shahbaz Sharif. As far as getting together,
and when I come back to you, I'm going to ask you about Shahbaz Sharif's game as well, game plan. But let me bring in Ahmed Jawad Saab. Ahmed Jawad Saab, of course, when everything is going on, the assumption is that Shahbaz Sharif wants to mend fences. But it doesn't seem that your party actually is ready for that kind of thought. So who is he actually appealing to right now?
Basically, our interest is not in the opposition. Our interest is, first of all, we have to keep our party united. And like you mentioned that some rifts, and then there was a lot of talk about Jahangir Khan Tareen group, which seem to have settled down.
The talk is still there.
It is there, but I still think it will not last very long, and things will be resolved. And this is what I predicted right at the onset, that yes, it's a challenge, but things will be resolved.
Today, two of my guests are actually taking credit for their correct predictions. But Jahangir Tareen group seems to be maintaining its identity within Parliament. And they even have a parliamentary leader. Can that happen as per the rules of procedure?
Farrukh, this is trust deficit. That is why groups emerge. It is only when you start trusting each other. And the main grievance of Jahangir Tareen was that his share in the sugar industry is 20-21%. But it seemed that he was singled out, and so everything about the sugar scandal, everything about that inquiry and investigation, it looked like that only Jahangir Tareen is responsible. So this was his main grievance, and I think
20% control of the market.
Yeah.
It's a big share.
But it is still 80% is out there. Somebody else is holding.
Yeah, but he is one of yours. He comes from your party, so your party had to actually make an example.
Farrukh, we cannot make somebody an example unless it's proven guilty.
No, that is true.
We have started only with a commission inquiry, and I think the next step of commission inquiry was those 2 FIRs against Jahangir Tareen, and that was mainly covered in the media also. So it seemed, and this is how this trust deficit came in and the group came in.
No, but you have to realize how optics actually work.
Yeah.
Optics are telling us, I understand innocent until proven guilty and all that, right? But optics are telling us something else. That one strong man from within your party is being held accountable by your government, and while it goes on, all of a sudden a pressure group of his own supporters starts emerging, and people who have only one point agenda, to either save him or to bring the government down. And finally, you might be actually conceding some space to them.
I don't think so. Like I said, that it was a trust deficit. As soon as they can be assured, or they have been assured, there won't be anything like that. So as soon as that trust comes back, there should not be any problem.
Okay.
But regarding the optics, when accountability is not so much controlled like it used to be in the previous governments, when the accountability tries to find its own path on merit, so there could be complaints. I mean, Shahzad Akbar, if he is assigned with a task to investigate, so he has to do it on merit. Does not matter what kind of optics it is giving. And then there are grievances on the other side.
Right.
So obviously that is also giving some optics.
Okay.
So this contrast of optics is because that this government for the first time is not controlling accountability according to their own people or the opposition.
Right.
So it is letting it go, and when they let it go, then there are definitely complaints and there are
Right. Let me bring in the third guest who is patiently waiting for his turn, Dr. Niaz Murza. Last time you were in this program, we were more or less discussing the same issues. It seems that in Pakistan, we have the habit of getting stuck with issues, right? Do you think that PDM can come back to life? And do you think that Jahangir Tareen actually doesn't pose any challenge to the government at all?
Well, Pakistani politics, there's a lot of up and down seesaws. So what we have right now is what you can call a holding period. People are reconsidering their positions, their agendas, their strengths, their challenges in light of, the last attempt to, really bring life to politics and try to bring about some sort of a change in Pakistan. And obviously, that did not work out. So I think this kind of a period will hold on at least until the budget is passed, because that's the next big challenge. Nobody wants to have a situation where, the budget doesn't pass, and a lot of, groups, institutions will have a strong interest in ensuring, that the budget gets passed, so that at least, you have the official financial framework in place. And in the meantime, people are fishing around, trying to see what the situation is. You yourself mentioned a few new entrants like, Chaudhry Nisar now taking his oath suddenly. There is the Jahangir Tareen group that has come to life, and, it's still trying to figure out what kind of a profile it should have, what kind of modus operandi it should have, and how it can really flex its muscles within PTI. The basic objective of everybody within the Jahangir Tareen group is not necessarily to bring down the PTI government. It is to maximize their own positions and interests while staying within the PTI. So you have Jahangir Tareen, who's obviously being sidelined, and then he's followed by people not who are in love with him, But other people who may be, backbenchers who feel that they don't get enough attention within the PTI, and they feel that, if they can tag along with somebody big like him and he's able to, maneuver things a bit, then it's quite possible that, their factional position within the PTI will improve. So their agenda is quite different from, what the PM agenda is. And the question is, if PTI keeps ignoring them and doesn't give
Dr.
them...
Sir, let me point out a very basic fact. You were talking about the people associated with Jahangir Tareen group not having any love lost for Jahangir Tareen. But when they met with the Prime Minister, the team actually met, the members of this group minus Jahangir Tareen, at that time they had only one point agenda, Jahangir Tareen. Not their own constituencies, nothing else, only Jahangir Tareen.
Because, it's out of, some high morality or principles. It's because they feel that if Jahangir Tareen swims, then they will also be able to swim with him and rise within the party. So that is basically the agenda. But then, also, you talked about this one-person commission. What is the legal authority of this kind of a one-person commission? How can a one-person commission, rule on his fate? What is going to happen once the report comes out? If the report says that the FIA is, behaving unfairly towards him, will the Prime Minister tell FIA to stop? Isn't that interference in, institutional independence? So, it's just making things worse. If you talk about accountability...
That is a good question, sir. Let me actually quote from the one-man commission himself, because it is a man who is actually heading that commission. There are tweets, let me show the tweets that we have got of Barrister Sayyid Ali Zafar and also Mirza Shahzad Akbar. If the team can actually put up the tweet, let me quote Barrister Sayyid Ali Zafar. Some persons, media, are busy guessing on what my findings in JKT turns out to be. Let me make it clear that there is no report submitted by me. Any findings not necessity in writing shall be purely internal to PTI. And then he continues, and have no legal value or status, nor can the same have any relevance to or affect pending inquiries, investigations against the sugar barons or Mr. Tareen. As per the policy of the government of PMIK, that is Prime Minister Imran Khan, there is no room for concessions against corruption. And finally, however, I have been tasked to see into complaints of JKT and will be making my recommendations directly and only to the PM once I conclude. This is Barrister Sayyid Ali Zafar. Okay, right. I was about to quote Mirza Shahzad Akbar as well, but I think apparently it is enough. Let me just point out that Barrister Ali Zafar himself is saying that his report is only for the internal consumption, nothing else. Now, the question again, Javed Jadun Sahab, is that is this group that powerful that it can create a problem for PTI?
I think it is not a question of being a powerful group. What is important is the numbers again.
Okay.
When you look at the composition of the group, JKT group, 8 MNAs and about 22 or so MPs. I think that is significant because a very thin majority is being enjoyed by PTI at the center, and same is the case in Punjab province.
Right.
But I don't believe that the group is going to go against the government in Islamabad or in Punjab. I think primarily their objective was to get some relief for Jahangir Tareen.
Okay.
As you pointed out that it was a single point agenda when the group met the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So I think they keep on changing their stances as well. To start with, when they faced media right in the beginning, they were quite bitter and bit hostile as well. Right. But after meeting the Chief Minister in Punjab and meeting the Prime Minister as well, their rhetoric and their tone and terror changed as well. They started emphasizing that they are part of the PTI and the only leader is the Prime Minister Imran Khan. But still they weren't able to justify why they they formed a group known as JKT when there's only one leader and the leader is Imran Khan. Then what was the need to form a group known as JKT grouping inside the party?
Do you lend any credence to the speculation that Jahangir Tareen Saab might be in contact either with PMLN or People's Party? If you remember, a People's Party senior leader tweeted about an expected meeting between Zardari Saab and JKT, and then eventually that tweet was withdrawn, but there seemed to be something going on. At least he was hinting at it.
Farrukh, I think he is better positioned within the PTI, because if he starts any covert or overt contacts with Pakistan Muslim League and or any other political party, he would lose any credibility left as far as JKT is concerned, because he says that a bit injustice is being done to him and he would like to address that particular complaint of his. But if he starts covert kind of contacts with PMLN, I think even if he has some more sympathizers within the party and within the establishment as well, I think we need to understand that, well, whenever there is a change in Pakistan, people believe that it is not done, that change never comes without the support of the establishment.
And very quickly, before I go to Ahmad Jawad Saab, Chaudhry Nisar, any connection?
Personally speaking, Farrukh, I don't see any connection as far as Nisar is concerned. I think the only reason he came to the Provincial Assembly was because of that particular ordinance. Yes, I think there's nothing else.
Yeah,
and
that
why,
ordinance is also
why Farrukh staying 3 years in hibernation and then coming on at the service and saying that.
Look, while you're commenting, Ahmad Jawad Saab is shooting Mona Lisa smiles at me. So there must be something hidden over there. Let me ask Ahmad Jawad Saab, sir, this ordinance that had to come into effect to actually bar anybody from taking oath of office after this much time, why is it in itself taking so much time?
The ordinance?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there must be a process, there must be some deliberation.
Nothing?
And it maybe
a summary goes to the president actually signs on it, promulgates it.
So it
Nothing else.
It will come. I mean, I think perhaps we do not need to speculate.
No,
why
but you realize that there is a race going on. There was a race going on between the ordinance and Chaudhry Nisar, who reaches there first. And Chaudhry Nisar actually beat it.
No, in fact, this we can say now when we suddenly saw Chaudhry Nisar. So now we can say there was a race, otherwise there was no race. The ordinance was coming. So Chaudhry Nisar one day thought that he should come back, and he came back.
No, but you realize that the said ordinance, the time it has taken already, if actually its own standard is applied on the ordinance, it will be disqualified. Because it has taken this much time.
No, but now he has.
No, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the ordinance. If ordinance says that after 3 months or 6 months of not getting elected, if you don't take oath of office or come into effect, you are nobody, right? So the same goes for the ordinance. 6 months and still not there.
Yeah, I think at this stage it is quite a hypothetical discussion. That if it comes, if it happens.
Should I quote your own office bearers?
I think what is more important is that there is somebody who has suddenly appeared. Yes, the question could be that what is the coincidence or what is the timing of his arrival. But of course, it is related to that race which you mentioned, might be, or there might be some other political ambition. After 3 years hibernation, he might have had a good talk with Shahbaz Sharif, his old friend, and he might have asked him. So I mean, but this is all speculation.
No, but of course, unless we have all the facts, it will be hypothetical, right?
Yeah, it is.
But despite that, let me give you a circuit flow, right? JKT contacts, or Asif Ali Zardari contacts JKT, right? Asif Ali Zardari also contacts Shahbaz Sharif. Shahbaz Sharif contacts Chaudhry Nisar. And the purpose is to fail the Punjab budget and bring about the change in province. And Chaudhry Nisar, because Hamza is not acceptable to Mariam, Chaudhry Nisar might be acceptable.
Farrukh, we cannot object if opposition is trying to bring down the government. I mean, this is the critique are bringing down the government in third world country. Bringing down the government is more important than healthy criticism on the government.
Wow.
So the opposition is always, and what we have seen in last, not even this PDM time, even before that. So from the day one, if you recall, the narrative of opposition for PTI and for Imran Khan was selected. But I think that narrative has not worked well. They have been running it through PDM and even before that, JUI Dharna.
No, but we are not talking about, as Jadoon Sahab pointed out, we are not talking about narratives now. We are talking about number game. And the number we know in Punjab is very narrow.
It's very thin, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And that is why I'm saying that the threat of JKT with so many MPs and MNA, of course, it definitely should have caught the attention of media. It should definitely be a national debate that what is going to happen. But I think at this point of the time, we have seen it has touched the peak and it has slowly coming down.
Okay.
And
you're talking about the debate, not coronavirus. Okay.
Coronavirus is also coming down.
That's right.
And this JKT debate is also, I mean, Fawad Chaudhry's statement is also there today, that because he met the group, Jahangir Khan Tareen group, and
right.
according to his statement, things are okay and everybody is hale and hearty.
Okay.
So if opposition was expecting anything out of this, we can't blame them.
Right.
They should expect.
Budgets are coming. Budgets are coming, and your government also believes in actually building consensus on budget.
Yeah.
And here is an opposition leader, freshly released from jail, who says that he wants to work with you on Charter of Economy. Are you going to work with them?
Why not?
So what is keeping you for past 3 years?
I mean, the past 3 years, you have seen how opposition stance right from the beginning, not accepting Prime Minister, not accepting the elections, and you have seen the kind of environment. I mean, I'm not blaming one side, but you have seen the environment where it was only blame game. There was very heated debates. I mean, under that environment, and then PDM, and before that JUI, everything. So, I mean, if the not right environment, how can you start talking about some charter of democracy or charter of economy or any other resolution? But I think the question which you asked is that if the opposition leader is ready and if the opposition wants, why not? That is my answer. That why not? After 3 years, when even Mariam Nawaz is saying that we want PTI should complete its tenure. So whatever is the, you know, whether it is she's saying sarcastically or she actually probably reached to a conclusion that there is no way that you can bring down the government, so it is better that they complete their tenure. And so, I mean, at this stage, the intention and the efforts of government should be resolution, so that they can concentrate on the performance.
Is there a possibility one fine morning Prime Minister of Pakistan picks up a telephone set and makes a call to Shehbaz Sharif?
I don't know. I mean, Prime Minister, if you remember, I think about a month ago, he
we are
asked.
not merely talking about a person. We are talking about an office, which is a legitimate office of leader of opposition.
I cannot say what exactly Prime Minister Imran Khan do, but knowing him, I would say he would let the second tier of leadership to talk to opposition. If you recall, he already asked Asad Kaisar, Speaker of the Assembly,
He's
to
not
initiate.
second tier. He's Speaker National Assembly. Neutral job.
Yes, he also asked him, in his meetings with the party leadership, he is emphasizing on this thing that we should be now concentrating on the performance of the government.
Right.
So,
and to do that, you have to make more laws.
Yes.
And to do that, you need cooperation of the opposition.
Yeah.
Right. Let me go to Dr. Niaz Mirza. Dr. Niaz Mirza, you are listening to the discussion that is going on. The idea of a charter of economy, how serious is it? Because I understand that all the political parties have their manifesto, they have different outlook on economy. People's Party claims to be a pro-socialist party, then PMLN and PTI seem to be occupying more or less the same space when it comes to economic spectrum. But do you think that this idea will ever go anywhere?
Well, I think it has relevance in a charter of democracy. Because, charter of democracy is about politics, and politics is essentially, a lot of it is, their own behavior. So, what did they agree in the charter of democracy? That they will not try to bring down, each other's government. So that wasn't about actual governance, it was about their own behavior. And, you can debate to what extent they, stuck to it. But whatever success the Charter of Democracy had, it was related to, their own behavior, how they will vote on devolution and so on. Now, Charter of Economy is a bit different. There are areas where, they can be mutually supportive. So, for example, if they can try to come to, some agreement on, say, the issue of state-owned enterprises, they are a monolith and they are bleeding very badly. If they can come to some agreement on what would be the best way forward, so that when one of them is trying to do it, they don't try to shoot it just because of politics, or if it's a question about, taxation, how to increase your taxes. There are a few areas, but then, economy also includes private, parties. It's determined by their behavior as well. And it's more about policy rather than legislation.
You were giving examples. When you were giving examples, I thought that you were going to start with CPEC or trade with neighbors. And you actually started with the biggest hot button issue in economy. You realize that all three parties are never going to agree on public sector enterprises.
Yeah, that's the thing, because of ideological. So there are huge policy level issues. So I'm not sure, whether there will be a charter of economy. Even charter of democracy was only half successful. But what they should consider is actually a charter on extremism. Come to some, agreement on how to deal with groups like, TLP, Labak, and so on. Because when one tries to deal with them, the other tries to, shoot them down. So, but dialogue is essential. The kind of attitude that we've had in the last 3 years has been very unfortunate, where there has hardly been any demand, a dialogue at the top level, and it's hurt PTI more, because it's got bogged down into this completely useless, daily fights with the opposition, and it's taken its attention and energies away from, governance. It's unnecessarily created vitriolic, and it's taken its attention from governance. So I think it's in its own interest that an initiative comes from Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, to try to have better relationships, especially now that the PDM is at least dormant at the moment, and there is Shehbaz Sharif in the front. So let's see how they react. But I'm not overly optimistic that this kind of a maturity will be shown.
Right. This kind of maturity might be needed. Do you think that the budget is coming at the center and in Punjab? Is there any serious challenge to either of the two budgets? Because if budget fails, then the governments actually fail, right?
Well, the opposition cannot challenge, the budget. If the challenge has to come from the budget, it will be from the JKT group. But I don't think they will go to the extent of, failing the budget, because, that means the end of the government. So they will use the threat, they'll growl, they'll, ask for their pound of flesh, and in the end, a few promises will be made. They may not be, met before the budget, but then I think they'll move on, and the budget most probably will pass.
Right. Let me bring this question to Javed Jadun sahab. We are talking about, Punjab budget, right? And the question right now is, if you remember, when it came to the previous finance minister, his election as a senator, he was almost a certainty that he's going to win. They had the numbers, but then they failed. Is there a possibility that something different is going to happen in Punjab? Because Punjab seems to be focus of various parties. I mean, People's Party, PMLN, JKT Group, others as well.
Yeah, are we talking about the political
The
situation?
budget
The economic
and the
one?
budget leading to some political changes.
Okay, I think definitely you're right that there are many pressure groups within the provincial assembly,
Okay.
and they are very dominant groups as well. Like PMLN is a very dominant force in the provincial assembly, and after the emergence of JKT group, I think the pressure is on the government in Punjab rather than on the opposition, because they have to deliver, they have to get the budget through, and there are certain kind of anxiety as well among the ruling party in Punjab, because knowing that Mr. Buzdar has not been able to deliver to the extent what were the expectations,
Okay.
as far as the biggest promise of Punjab was concerned.
Yeah, but
So,
so we keep on saying this, with the exception of Buzdar Saab not being a very out-and-out leader who is very articulate or he is in front of camera, when it comes to his record, Prime Minister very proudly actually presents that record. Yesterday, he tweeted about anti-corruption in Punjab, making a record recovery.
Farrukh, my observation was in the context of the perceptions, as far as perceptions are concerned.
Okay.
And we know that there has been talk, and media keeps on talking about less than sterling performance on part of Mr. Buzdar in Punjab.
Like media is performing well.
Yes.
I mean, how many economic programs we have.
Absolutely.
We don't have that kind of, serious talk going on at all.
I think definitely there's a
Media
problem
is the
with
one to talk, right?
Media.
I'm talking
becomes-
about electronic.
The media becomes the judge, jury, and the
Executioner.
as well. Because
Funny
media
thing
in
is,
Pakistan-
media in this situation cannot be executioner because none of them is an MNA or MPA, right?
No, but the execution of media is never seen.
Never
it is
seen.
felt.
It is felt.
Media execution of or by, because execution of media can be seen.
No, execution by media.
Okay. All right. No threat to Punjab government.
I think if you're talking
you
about,
have to think about it.
threats from opposition and yes, some groups, this threat is not only today. It was in last 2 years also.
Okay.
We never enjoyed a very comfortable majority, neither in Punjab nor in the federal.
Okay.
But I think I'm quite optimistic that they will sail through. And the reason I tell you also,
Okay.
the reason is that opposition, to our good luck also, has not been able to put their act together.
Okay.
They tried.
Okay.
They made this PDM and they were very enthusiastic about it. They were more enthusiastic about the result of the
Okay.
PDM, and I think that was their best effort. Now,
Yeah,
I'm not
but-
sure that what at this moment, I mean, if you look at the language and the tone of PPP against PMLN
Right.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
I mean, so do you think that these opposition parties will be able to act smartly together against PTI before the budget?
That is the
I
most
doubt.
surprising part of Asif Ali Zardari's calculus. While they were supporting PMLN, we had clear indication that they are silently reaching out to your party. And now that they are actually attacking PMLN, there is a possibility that they might be secretly working in tandem. Kashmir, are you optimistic in Kashmir? Elections are approaching, right?
Yes.
Very quickly. Yes, sir.
Our list is about to be announced.
Okay.
List of candidates. There have been a good discussion. We are quite optimistic about this thing.
Okay.
And we are going to win like Gilgit-Baltistan, even better results than Gilgit.
When you said like, I was a bit apprehensive. You might say like by-elections. So not that. Right, like Gilgit-Baltistan.
Just one statement about the
Very quickly.
by-elections. One statement.
Okay.
that in 2018, the number of seats in the National Assembly, it is still the same even today, after all the by-elections.
Right.
Isn't it surprising for you?
No, it is not. And we'll talk about that another day. Very quickly, sir, Dr. Niaz Murza, any threat to Punjab government?
Well, I don't think so. Personally, I think it's all, just hubris, putting pressure, trying to get their pound of flesh, making the threats. But eventually, I think the budgets both in the center and in Punjab will sail through. And if anything has to happen, it will be after the budget.
Right. Dr. Niaz Murza, I'm told that we have run out of time. Thank you very much for your precious time. Javed Jadoon Saab, always great having you in the show. Same goes for you, Ahmad Jabbar Saab, especially these Mona Lisa smiles also. Right? They keep on adding to the value of discussion. But while there seems to be a consensus within our panelists that there is no threat to Punjab government, the punters and the people who keep on speculating are speculating a lot, not about the government at center, but the government in Punjab.